What's up, everybody? This is Mario, and I'm back with another episode of the podcast. And today, what I want to do is I want to continue with my 6-step framework on how to complete any endurance event and become the best version of yourself. So I'm calling it the Endure Framework. And so far, we've talked about the first 2 steps. So for E in Endure, that stands for envision future success. So that's where you get clarity in all of these different areas about what you want your life to look like in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years. Then from there, we choose a specific area of that and we start to visualize success. Let's pretend that you want to complete an Ironman or a marathon or a half marathon, anything like that. We visualize what that would look like when you accomplish that goal. What would you see? What would you hear? What would you feel? Those types of things. And then once we do those first 2 things, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to make your goals visible. So how do you write them down? How do you make a vision board and put it in front of you to remind you of those goals? So that's envision future success. Then from there, N in Endure stands for navigate your path. So this is where you actually commit to your goals. This is being more than interested. This is actually committing to your goals and achieving them despite no matter what obstacles show up. From there, it's all about getting a plan. This is a plan for your goal. If it's an endurance event, it's important to get a training plan, which tells you what to do every single day and when to have rest days. After that, it's super important to find a mentor or a community of like-minded people. It's important to find people who have already accomplished what you're about to go through so that they can answer those key questions that you have. And then once you do that, it's all about getting the gear that you need. And it's not about getting all of this fancy gear. It's just about getting the essential gear that you need in order to get started. So with envision future success and navigate your path, we're about to talk about the next step in the framework. So what is that next step? I think the next step is actually one of the most important of all, because this is where you actually take action. And so the D in Endure stands for develop consistent habits. And this quote from Aristotle kind of sums up what habits really are and how important they are. So he says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." And for me, habit formation is like literally one of my favorite topics in the whole world. Some of my favorite books are about habits. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg was one of the first ones that I read. And then Atomic Habits by James Clear and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. And the big question is, what are some of the most important habits to develop to help you complete a half Ironman or an Ironman? So that's just kind of assuming that's your goal, or whatever. You can insert whatever endurance goal or endurance challenge that you're signed up for. Just kind of insert that here. What are the most important habits to develop to help you complete that? So for me, obviously, the first one is just exercise. In order to be successful with triathlons, with marathons, with ultra marathons, with endurance events, the most important thing that you need to do is to develop consistency. And in order to develop consistency with your workouts and with your training, you need to make exercise a habit. So here are some of the best ways to do that. I want to go through maybe 3 or 4 different ways to make exercise a habit. The first thing is just to plan and schedule your workouts. So a couple of questions like, when are you going to work out? For how long and where? If you can answer those 3 questions, then you are way more likely to succeed in following through. A lot of people think that taking action is all about being motivated or inspired, but that's not actually true. The science says that it's really more about having a plan and having an intention, an intentional plan. And so if you can just phrase it, kind of this way, during the next week, I will partake in at least X minutes, 10, 20, 30, of vigorous exercise on this day at this time in this place. So if you actually schedule your workouts and you know how long they are and where they're going to be and on what days, what time, that type of a thing, you're going to be more likely to follow through. So one thing that I like to do with my Ironman training and half Ironman training is to have certain workouts on certain days. So for example, Monday nights might be an easy swim, Tuesday might be a hard bike, and so on. Because by creating a repeating schedule that works for you, you minimize the chances of missing a workout. And if your goal as a triathlete is to complete the swim, bike, and run workouts per week, you need to put them in your calendar as repeating events. So that's the first thing, the first tip on developing consistency with your workouts. Plan and schedule them. The next thing for me, I think the best time to complete your workouts is in the morning. So my recommendation is complete your workouts in the morning, because if you don't do it in the morning, then it's going to be much more likely that you're going to miss it with all of the demands of the given day. We all have so many responsibilities with work, with kids, with our spouses, and just taking care of things around the house. That's why I always try and get my workouts done in the morning. And also you get the increased benefit of just having that great start to your day and having tons of energy for the rest of the day at work. And this is just an example of how exercise, in training for a triathlon or a marathon, helps you become a better person and helps you become better at work. So second tip would be complete your workouts in the morning. Third thing, might be an obvious one, but if you're just short on time, do a shorter workout. So rather than skipping a workout altogether, I think it's better to complete the workout at a shorter duration. So, I think we've all been guilty of skipping longer workouts altogether, but, let's pretend that you're training for an Ironman or a half Ironman and you have a 2-hour workout, a 2-hour bike ride scheduled, and you're just swamped and you don't have time. Rather than just skipping that, it would be better to do 30 minutes or whatever you have. So that's kind of the third tip there, of just, if you're short on time, do a shorter workout, because the consistent workouts tied together over time, over a period of days, weeks, and months, that's what gives you the true endurance in a race. And so just a couple of other things, like it's okay to start small if necessary. You don't need to come out of the gates and do these longer workouts right away. You will be able to grow and to build into longer workouts over time. And then the last thing is just take action despite how you feel in a given moment. I can't tell you how many times I've woken up and I just don't feel like working out. It's like, I've got a 45-minute run or an hour-long run. But what I tell myself is, okay, I'm just going to, get out there and run for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and then see how I feel. And virtually every time, once you put your shoes on, once you're out there and you're running, after 5 or 10 minutes, you feel much better and you end up completing the workout. So, you may not feel like it at the beginning, but you need to push through and just get out there and just force yourself to do it, because you're going to be super grateful that you did. So that's kind of the first consistent habit that you really need to develop to complete that endurance event, whatever that endurance event is for you. So the next habit that I want to talk about ties in with this first one, because as you start to develop this habit of exercise and you're training for an Ironman or a half Ironman, you could be training anywhere from 6 hours to 15 hours or more in a given week, and your body needs to recover. And the best way to recover is actually through sleep. So the second habit that is most critical to help increase your chances is sleep. So sleep is an important part of the recovery process, and it's just that one area where all of us can improve, I think. So the general rule of thumb with sleep is to get 7 to 9 hours for most adults, but it could be even higher for you as an endurance athlete. And something to look at and think about is just the negative consequences of not getting enough sleep. If you are getting less than 6 hours of sleep, you're going to suffer, because that sleep deficit results in a higher kind of rate of perceived effort and a decreased pain tolerance for workouts compared to periods of normal sleep. So what that means is it's going to feel like you're working harder in a given workout, and you're not going to be able to tolerate as much pain, or you're not going to be able to run for as long as you normally do if you have a normal night of sleep. And poor sleep also hurts the body's ability to regulate temperature, and it creates problems for athletes when you're in racing in hot weather and in cold environments. And it's just, there's all of these just negative consequences of not getting enough sleep that you really need to take seriously as an endurance athlete. So if we're really trying to develop that consistent habit of getting 7 to 9 hours, how do we do that? I've got a few tips for you on how to get better sleep. The first thing that I would say is, if you want to know how many hours of sleep you get and what your the quality of the sleep, the first thing to do is to start tracking your sleep using some sort of device. So I use an Apple Watch, and I use an app on my watch called Pillow. So every morning after I wake up, I get a push notification that tells me how many hours of sleep I got, what my sleep quality was. And it's just something that I look at over time to make sure that I'm in that 7 to 9 hour range. And it's kind of surprising, because sometimes I'll be in bed for 8 hours or 8.5 hours, but I'll only actually get 7 hours of sleep or 7.5 hours of sleep, because of these random periods of time that you wake up that you may not be aware of. So the first thing is, I would say, is to track your sleep. Second thing that I would really think about is to develop a nightly routine and a regular morning routine or wake up time, so that your body starts to get trained to that same rhythm, and do that consistently every day of the week. So even on the weekends, all of us like to sleep in. I do it from time to time, but I really try and keep my body on that same time zone and that same sleep cycle, so that it just gets developed over time. Another thing is to try and avoid your phone or any sort of screen time 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Obviously, that just gets your mind going. It causes all of these different issues that will make it harder for you to fall asleep. One of my personal favorites with getting better sleep is just to wear a sleep mask. It looks a little ridiculous, but I'm a firm believer in sleep masks, and especially when you're trying to take a nap. So a big thing that I do is, on the weekends, when I do a longer workout in the morning, I typically take a nap, a 20 to 25 minute nap, 7 or 8 hours after I wake up. So that is a huge part of, improving your sleep and improving your recovery process. So I just want to make sure that you understand that making sleep a priority will make you a better athlete, because it will help you recover, and it'll make you a better person, because you're just going to feel so much better. You're going to be in a better mood. You're going to be happier. You're going to be treating other people better. So we've talked about exercise, we've talked about sleep, and we've taken care of our workouts, we've taken care of our recovery. What other habit is critical to develop? And for me, that is meditation. So the way that meditation was described to me that got me really interested in it originally was that meditation is like exercise for your brain. And it really struck me, because one of the things that I was so passionate about was exercising and taking care of my body. And I was trying to eat healthy foods. But I had never thought about am I doing any sort of exercise for my brain? So that's where meditation comes in. And there's all different types of meditation that you can do. The type of meditation that I prefer is called mindfulness meditation, which is just kind of a simple, kind of secular, scientifically validated way to focus on your breath. And it's that exercise for your brain. And you can look it up. There are just tons of articles and scientifically validated journals that talk about the benefits of meditation. Just a few that I'll mention: reduces stress, controls anxiety, promotes emotional health, enhances self-awareness, lengthens your attention span, can generate kindness, may help fight addictions. These are just a few of the benefits of meditating. And I don't want to go into every single one of them, but just wanted to mention a few of those on the list. Now, for those of you who are interested in how to get started with meditation, I recommend a few things. The first is to use an app. There's tons of apps that are out there in the App Store. And I would just say experiment with the different ones that work for you. There's apps called Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer, tons of other ones. But if you just want to take my word for it, I would say just use Headspace. That's the one that I use. So first I would say use an app and let them guide you through the process. These apps are built to help you form a habit. Now, what worked for me was just starting with a basics course and starting with a guided meditation. So I would first check out an app, I'd experiment with it, and then any of those apps, I would choose a basics course so that they can walk you through the process and then get you started. And then after that, I would say stick with that course for at least 10 days. So just give it at least 10 days and then really try and notice, how did you feel at the beginning of the 10 days? And then how do you feel after? So those are just a few tips and a few things that I would recommend. And kind of just the bottom line here is meditation is something everyone can do to improve their mental and emotional health. You can do it anywhere without special equipment or any sort of membership to anything. But there's all of these courses and support groups that are out there, and there's all different types of meditation that you can try and you can be interested in. But I think it's a great way to improve your quality of life, even if you only have a few minutes to do it each day. So just kind of to recap so far, that is pretty much the D in the Endure framework. And it's all about developing consistent habits. And for me, the specific habits that will help you the most in, completing an endurance event, but also becoming the best version of yourself are these three, with exercise and being consistent in your workouts and over time tying together those successful workouts and building your endurance. Next, sleep. Prioritizing sleep to get that 7 to 9 hours and that recovery time that is desperately needed for you as an endurance athlete. And then third, meditation. This is one of the best ways to just regulate your mental and your emotional health. And like I said, it's kind of like exercise for your brain. So I want to bring it back to you. How are you doing in those three areas, in exercise and being consistent in your workouts, sleep and meditation? So rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on each one of those. 5 is you're doing amazing. 1 is you're doing poorly. How are you doing on those three things and on developing consistent habits? So that's what I have for you today. I hope that was helpful. Come back tomorrow for the next step in the Endure framework. Thanks.